Nick Saban announces his retirement, leaves the entire SEC saying, now what? Well, we're going to tell you what. This is Locked On Vandy. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Boy, do we have a doozy for you today. I had come in today thinking I was just going to talk about some recruiting updates, look at a few freshmen, how they're going to impact the 2024 version of the Vanderbilt Commodores, get into a little women's basketball as they get set to take on Kentucky later on this evening. But Nick Saban decides he's going to retire. So Nick Saban announced his retirement from University of Alabama as their head football coach. This obviously sent shockwaves through the entire conference and left with the overarching question, now what? And that goes for a lot of different things. Now what? So what does that mean? How does that pertain to Vanderbilt, right? How does that, if you're sitting as an LSU fan, how does that pertain to LSU? How does it pertain to anybody in the conference? How does it pertain to them? How does that question shape them? That's the overarching, that's the theme of tonight. Now what? So I'm going to tell you what. Vandy is set to play against Alabama. And, this is an interesting deal because they were set to play, I believe, I will get the date here for you just a second here. I'm going to say October 5th. They're set to play October 5th at Vanderbilt against Alabama in a game that was likely going to be a complete and utter shelling, beatdown, whatever adjective you want to use. It was going to be a bloodbath. Unfortunately, that's the truth with Nick Saban. Most teams he plays, it's typically a bloodbath. But with him retiring, how does that affect that game? Well, in the next probably 72 hours, we're going to find out exactly how it's going to affect that game because that's when Alabama's probably going to announce their new head coach, which my prediction is going to be Dan Lanning, which personally I think that would be a home run hire. And let's be honest, Alabama can get whoever they want because there's not really anybody that's not interested in this. Kirby Smart included, Lane Kiffin included, Mike Vrabel's probably. I mean, everybody's probably interested in this job, and I think would probably say yes. But as far as prioritizing, I think you have to look first at Dan Lanning. Kalen DeBoer is a name that I'm hearing a lot. Mike Norvell could be a major player in this. Dabo Sweeney, his name is in the mix. I don't know how serious that is, but there's a lot of people in the mix for this job. But I think with what Dan Lanning has done at Oregon, with the energy that he has breathed into that program, with the production that they have gotten, they've made it to back-to-back Pac-12 championships. Unfortunately, falling short in both of those, but he had Bo Nix as a legitimate Heisman contender, probably improved his draft stock. Their defense improved drastically under his watch, and a lot of things within the program improved at the University of Oregon. And it's a big-time program no matter what you say. They've got the Nike money. They've got the Phil Knight money, no matter what you say. So I think Dan Lanning has proved to this point that he could be possibly the guy for the job. Also, I think Kalen DeBoer is somebody that I would take serious stock in. The 2 years that he's been at Washington, they have been nothing short of amazing. They made a pretty good run last year, fell short I think injuries, experience kind of derailed them a little bit. They kind of fell apart towards the end of the season. But this year, making it to the title game and making a good showing for the most part. I know the score didn't lend itself to it, but like there were parts of that game where you looked at them and said, hey, they belong. But Michigan was they were just a buzzsaw. They were just on a mission. Like that game, I don't know. I don't know that in that situation, there's very few teams that I think could have beat Michigan in that scenario because they were that hungry. So Kalen DeBoer is a name to watch out for. So, but depending on who gets this job, I mean, obviously Nick Saban is who he is, right? He's the greatest, I think, and most people would probably agree with me. I think he is the greatest to ever do it. He's the greatest coach to ever run the sidelines. I believe that. And his records show it. Everything he's done shows it. His path, everywhere he's been, he's made an impact. Like, I know he didn't win championships at Michigan State, but like they were a team to be taken seriously before he got there. I'm pretty sure. Now, I was in elementary school. I think I was a young child, but they were pretty pitiful when he got there. And he resurrected them. Coached under Bill Belichick for the Cleveland Browns. He was his defensive coordinator. Was the leader of one of the top defenses in the league in 1994, and a resurgence of the Cleveland Browns out of the ashes of obscurity between Marty Schottenheimer and Bill Belichick in the early 90s when he came over. So lots of things that he's accomplished. The time that he had at LSU, even with the Dolphins, he made a positive impact. Somewhat, I think it's more of like certain players benefited from what he brought to the table, not necessarily team goals or team accolades, but like guys like Jason Taylor ended up finding a new position that resurrected his career and added years to his career because he became a stand-up guy when he didn't want to, and things like that. I think some guys standed to benefit. And I think if they would have gotten Drew Brees, I think we wouldn't be talking about Nick Saban in Alabama, honestly. We may be, but I don't think so, because I think he makes a pretty good run there with Drew Brees. Instead, they got Dante Culpepper, who was a lemon at that point. All his magic was gone because he didn't have Randy Moss. So my point in saying all that, congratulations to Nick Saban on a tremendous career. And I know this is not Locked on Bama, so I apologize, but like this is a situation that transcends any individual team. Like you have to acknowledge that when somebody of this caliber decides to end their illustrious career, you have to give them props, right? You have to give them props. So I'm going to do that. Now, it's going to be a significant step down because it's Nick Saban. It's obviously going to be a step down. Like I don't think anyone expects it to be above the level that Nick Saban was. Maybe no, it's not going to be, right? So it brings Bama back down to earth a little bit. So how does this affect the game with Vandy on October 5th? Well, Vandy's gotten closer to the pack. Alabama's gotten closer to the pack. There's some squirrely things that can happen in this construction site that Vandy calls home, and notoriously struggle with running quarterbacks. So we don't know what's going to happen with some guys transferring out. We don't know how their roster is going to look here in the very near future. Ryan Williams just decommitted, star wide receiver, a 5-star wide receiver. So there's going to be some shakeups there. So this team might look a little different. This team might come back further down to earth than people realize. Not saying it's a slam dunk for Vanderbilt to actually win this game, but I do think it changes some things. I do think Clark Lee getting involved. I made this analogy on SEC After Dark. I don't know if this is a good analogy or a bad analogy. Leave in the comments what you think. But when Matt Eberflus saved his job for at least a year, but saved his job in Chicago because he took over the defense and started calling plays on the defense. And their defense improved tremendously, leaps and bounds. They became an actual defense, an actual star-studded, physical, aggressive, finally Chicago Bear defense. I think Clark Lee can do something similar at Vanderbilt. Like, I think him taking over the defense is going to be probably one of the best things to happen to this program, and probably one of the best things to happen to his career is him taking back over the defense. Now, he's hired some guys. The two most recent hires are going to help him when he has to go play head coach and put the head coach hat on. Like, you've got two defensive coordinators there. You got an associate guy that has an off the field role, and you have Melvin Rice, who is the co-DC at New Mexico State. Like, you have guys that have been in that role before that can take over some of the day-to-day stuff, some of like the deeper scouting stuff that Clark Lee can't do because he's got his head coaching hat on, and there's certain things that pull him away from being able to actually coach. So I think when you look at that, that's going to help him, but ultimately he's going to call the plays. He's going to call the shots. It's going to be his scheme. He's going to ultimately check off on all of the game plan stuff. So him doing that is going to save his career. So these two teams are going to be more even than they have been in the last probably 20 years. It's going to be the closest they've been talent-wise to each other in the last 20 years. Or not talent-wise, but like even matchup, I guess. Vandy's going to, like, I don't think people realize, Vandy's going to be pretty sneaky. And a lot of it, I think they're signing a pretty good freshman class, which we'll talk about here in the next segment. And I think the transfers they've gotten have been really, really good. I think they've done extremely well for Vanderbilt standards during this offseason program. So mark my words, like, I don't know if you guys realize that what Nate Johnson brings to the table and how he affects things. He's going to be good. He's going to be a good quarterback. So keep that in mind. But this game just got interesting. I'll just say it just got interesting with Nick Saban retiring. So October 5th, you're not going to see Nick Saban if you're looking for that. But this Bama team could be totally, totally different. So we'll probably circle back around there as we break down the schedule. When we get a better feel of what the roster looks like after like transfer portal guys and people jump out and jump back in, and I don't know. It's going to be pretty crazy over the next 72 plus hours. So stay tuned to that situation. When we come back, we're going to talk about some impact freshmen that are going to impact the level of play at Vanderbilt. We're going to do that right next. All right, this episode is brought to you by Gametime. So have you ever had a frustrating ticket buying experience? Well, Gametime allows you to take all of that out of it, right? So if you've ever had that happen to you, you shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Gametime is fast, and it's an easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. All right? There's some events happening. I guarantee you there's a comedy show around you. Some pretty good comedians out there that you've never heard of. Go see them. Get in the Gametime app and do so. They have last-minute tickets. They have flash deals, zone deals. We'll talk about that here in a second. They have easy-to-find and buy tickets of every kind of any event in your area. You get views from the seat and the venue and the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So this is what I love the most, right? You can see the view from your seat before you buy. So you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. I love that. I love the all-in prices. So like there's no surprise cost. There's no hidden cost. Everything is right there up front so you know what you're getting. All right. I mentioned zone deals. Zone deals is, hey, this is stressful, man. Just get me a seat in section A. And Gametime will do that. You pick the section, Gametime picks the seats. You get big time savings for that, actually. So the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. That's awesome. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, welcome back. Segment number 2 of the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. And speaking of every day, we thank you, everydayers. The subscriptions are increasing. I love it. Continue that trend. Let's get to 1,000. Be a friend, tell a friend, all of that good stuff. Locked On Vandy is where you want to go. Up next, though, you want to watch Locked On SEC. Man, they do a phenomenal job over there with the Locked On SEC podcast. Locked On Ole Miss. If you want to see the hilarity that's going to be ensuing with Lane Kiffin being part of the rumors of the next guy to take over Alabama, but that'll be short-lived because they're going to make an announcement pretty soon. So, but Stephen Willis does a phenomenal job over there. So if you want to ask him, I think you should go in droves and ask him about Lane Kiffin going. So I think that'll be funny. So again, find us on social media. So talked about Nick Saban. He's retiring. He's the GOAT. Now what? Well, now what? We move on. We have to, right? We move on. So who are going to be the impact freshmen? Okay, that's who we're going to look at because honestly, this is the group that's going to be the immediate future of this team, right? I think the freshmen are going to make the biggest impact on whether or not Vanderbilt has a successful season. And I'm measuring success based on bowl game. Bowl game equals successful season. You go to bowl, that's a win. Because when you're 2-10, like you don't really want to go like 4-8. Like that's improvement, but like that's not really what you want. You want a bowl game. Like that's when you know it's like, okay, Clark Lee's on the right track here, right? But I think he signed a really good freshman class, and I mean that. I'm not just saying it because this is the Locked On Vandy podcast, and I'm trying to get you to stick around and listen. I really mean that because I think people are like sleeping on this team a little bit. I think there's some guys in there that are going to be good. So how we're going to do this, okay? Who are going to be the top impact freshmen, okay? I'll give you the number one overall guy, and then I'll kind of break it down offense and defense. I think the transfers are going to – I think the guys from the transfer portal are going to impact special teams the most. So, obviously. All right, so the number one guy overall I think is going to be Dante Carter because he might end up he's a 4-star safety from Sabalo, Texas, Steele High School. He's 6'2", 175. I think he's going to be the biggest overall impact player because I think he might be starting as one of the safeties by the end of the season. I think he's going to be starting safety. And he's going to be he might be starting all year in some of our packages, some of our nickel packages or our like 3 safety packages, some things like that. I think he's good enough to be able to be that inside cover guy, box safety guy, or like he might be the deep safety and Brandon Fontenette might be the extra DB in there against run heavy teams. Like there's going to be some situations but I think overall Dante Carter is going to probably get the most playing time. He's probably going to have the most impact. He's, like I said, he's got the height. He's very rangy. He plays the ball really, really well in the air, and that's what I really like about him. He had 7 interceptions, and surprisingly, this is the first year that he's ever played defense too, which he's always been a wide receiver. And his huddle highlight will tell you that. But just the way, like it almost seems like he anticipates, and I think a lot of that is because he played wide receiver. He kind of understands the mentality of those receivers and the mentality of some of these passing concepts. So I think his anticipation, as JT O'Sullivan would say, is capital A anticipation. and he makes plays because of that. And that makes up for his lack of experience playing the position. That's why I think he's going to make a massive impact. All right, offensively, I think probably the guy that's going to make the biggest impact offensively is going to be Tyler Fortenberry. And he's a JUCO guy, so he kind of counts. I don't know if you want to count him or not. I'm going to count him. Tyler Fortenberry is going to be the biggest impact. He's 6'5", 250-pound tight end. He's former quarterback. Again, high football IQ. A guy that just very smooth. He's not overly fast, but he wins the ball really well in the air. He's tough, physical, really good run blocker. Could improve a little bit in that with some technique, but I think that'll come with time. So he'll probably be the biggest contributor just offensively in general. I really like the way he plays at the tight end position. I think he gives us in Tim Beck's offense a really, really, really good option at tight end, especially in the RPO game. And I think he's going to be a weapon. Any one of these receivers, I think, will play a huge role. You have Marquise Barrett from Knoxville. I think he's somebody that in the slot role can be like, they need a jet guy. They need a jet sweep guy. And I think he's probably that guy. And I think he could be, because they run a lot of jet read, and they're going to run a lot of jet read with Nate Robinson. And then in the future with Muschamp and St. Hilaire as they get acclimated. But I think Marquise Barrett could be your jet guy there. And of course, you have Joshua Raymond, who's played in the Under Armour All-American game from Lake Mary, Florida, 6'4", 263-pound offensive lineman. A little short to be a tackle, but I still think he can contribute there. He's got really good feet. He's athletic. He's physical. He's got a little bit of a nasty streak to him. Really like the way he plays. Defensively, before we get into our next break, I think outside of Carter, outside of Dante Carter, I think your next biggest impact, now all of these guys will impact in some way, but I think the biggest impact is going to come from your early enrollee defensive ends, right? You have Callahan Blair from Clearwater. He's coming in early. 6'4", 230-pound rush end. I think you have Simeon Boulware coming in from Decula. He's 6'5", 240. He's a good rush guy, big, long, physical, fast rush guy. And then Whit Edwards from Wagner, Oklahoma. He's 6'6", 210. Like, he's really fast off the edge. One of these guys is going to play the run side. I think it's going to be Callahan Blair is going to end up playing the run side on the defensive end, or if they go even fronts, he'll probably be a hand down guy if they put some weight on him. But I think those guys are going to have the most impact on this defense, because the interior guys, you can find some solid guys that can eat up some blocks and be a force in the run game. And you don't have to have dominant superstars there. You need somebody on that defensive line that's a star. And you'd love to have some of those interior guys be that. But I think your biggest impact is going to come from the edges, and then it's going to work its way in. And I think they're going to scheme that way. And those guys, those early enrollee guys, are going to be really integral part of what Clark Lee likes to do, getting after the passer. He's going to move and slant a lot probably anyway. So it's going to be very rare that these defensive linemen, especially the interior guys, are going to be asked to like stand up, bench press, and take up two gaps. I think with the size that they have and the reliance on some of the over-reliance on these freshmen, like Mason Carter, 6'5", 200 pounds. He's coming in early as well. He'll be impact. I think they're going to motion. I think they're going to move a lot. I think they're going to slant a lot, twist a lot, play games. So these guys are going to be on the move, and I think he's going to take advantage of their athleticism. So that being said, I'm really, really excited for these freshmen. I think it's a really good class. They're top 40. They have 20 guys coming in. Hopefully going to add a couple more, but they're really, really solid. We'll talk about some 2025 guys here as we roll along, but there's some defensive tackles in this class that are visiting that have offers that would be tremendous if we got. It would be I'm drawing a blank on the name all of a sudden. Why am I drawing a blank? I'm not real sure. Good Lord, man. Like this is see Stefan Shivers. Yeah, that's it right there from Humboldt, Tennessee. 6'5", 360 pounds. Holy cow. He is a freaking mountain of a man. He's coming for junior day. And then, of course, Nick Moore, defensive lineman, 3-star kid. He got an offer, too, from Jefferson County, Tennessee. So that'll be good. So anyway, we'll talk more about those 2025 guys as we get out of this recruiting cycle. So we're going to take a very, very, very quick break. And when we come back, we're going to wrap up the show, talk about the women's team against Kentucky. Stay tuned. All right, FanDuel. Looks like we're also presented by FanDuel. So the NFL regular season has wrapped up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use. There's so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays, any bet that you find in the new Explore tab. If you go to the Parlay Hub and make a parlay, that's a really good way to find the popular ones, and you can make a parlay for sure. There's a lot of other things, like you can stay boring and just go with the standard over-under or spread if you want to, or money line. It's your choice. But you can do all of that at FanDuel.com. If you go, so make sure you visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. All right, welcome back here. It is the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. It is our last segment. We're going to wrap up this show really quick. The Vanderbilt women later on tonight are going to take on the Kentucky Wildcats at Rupp Arena or wherever they play the women's games. I think it's Rupp Arena. But anyway, the women's team, as I mentioned in our last episode, they finally got their ranking. They're ranked 24th in the country according to USA Today and the coaches poll. If they can get a impressive win, dominating performance, they could probably break through in the AP poll as well. But they're going to need, I think the keys to that, honestly, are going to need to be for them to get off to a fast start. I think they need to play an extremely clean game this time around, like limit the mistakes, limit the turnovers. I think the turnovers are killing them in the polls, to be honest with you. That's the reason why they're not getting the respect that they deserve, because they just keep turning the ball over, and that's not good. You have to take care of the ball, and you have to score the ball. And I don't think they're doing that frequently enough either. And they're doing it in spurts, and they end up winning, and that's probably the more important thing. You'd rather win ugly than lose pretty. But if you want to set yourself up for a good seed in the tournament and a good matchups along the way in the conference tournament and then ultimately in the NCAA tournament, which is the goal, I think you have to get your playmakers involved early and often. You have to find easy shots for them, and you have to get them in a rhythm. Right, Ayanna Moore and what's your name, Jordan Brooks. You got to find them, and you got to get them going, because if you don't, you're going to be in a world of hurt, right? And so, I just think it's important. It's not Jordan. It's Jordan Cambridge and Ayanna Moore. They need shots. They need shots, and they need them quick. They need them urgent. They need the bench players to chip in and contribute some baskets. They need some defensive. They need to continue to force turnovers. They need to take the ball away. They need to force Kentucky into mistakes, bad shots, limit the second chance buckets that they have, limit the second chance opportunities that Kentucky has, play good perimeter defense. All that stuff I think is key. And if you prevent them from getting easy baskets and you set yourself up for easy baskets, that's usually a good recipe for success, truthfully. And you'll find a lot of that. So win clean, create and execute easy shots, and win the turnover margin. And I think you come away with a really good, convincing, clean win that will get you a ranking in both polls, which is what you deserve, being 15-1, 2-0 in conference. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Nick Saban kind of threw a wrench in the whole plan. I didn't plan on talking Nick Saban and turning this into Locked On Bama by any stretch, but like when it's him, he gets that respect. And I don't really care. He gets that respect. And he earned it. He definitely earned it. So, like I said, we hope you enjoyed. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being an everydayer. Follow us on social media at Locked On Vandy on X and IG. IG's Instagram. So thank you to the everydayers. You make this possible. Without you, I have nothing. So thank you and continue to grow. And we're going to continue to grow the show, but we're going to do so tomorrow as our next opportunity to grow. So hopefully you enjoyed this one. Hopefully you stick around, tell a friend, come back, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. And as always, anchor down.